The first scream didn't come from panic, it came from entitlement. I am not sitting next to her. The woman barked, voice slicing through the cabin air like a broken announcement. Heads turned. The aisle froze. 30,000 feet below, the tarmac glimmered in late morning sun, but inside row 3A, the temperature dropped. A flight attendant in a navy blazer blinked, unsure how to respond. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." The passenger didn't. "Don't ma'am me. I paid for first class, not for this." Her hand waved vaguely, dismissively, toward the black woman seated calmly by the window, a laptop balanced on her knees. No jewelry, no designer bag, no entourage. Just presence. Quiet, contained power. She looked up, unbothered, the kind of calm that makes arrogance nervous. The other passengers whispered, tension rippling through the narrow cabin like static before a storm. The attendant stammered something about seating policy, but the white woman cut her off. "Either move her or move me." Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. The woman in the window seat. Her name is Dr. Naomi Ellis, 41, co-founder and majority shareholder of SkyVista Airlines. But today, no one on this plane knows that. She's dressed simply, beige slacks, white blouse, hair pulled back, but her eyes hold the patience of someone who's seen this scene before. She could have chartered the whole jet. Instead, she booked a standard first-class ticket under an ordinary name. A quiet test. The attendant leans toward the complaining passenger, whispering, "Please, ma'am, let's keep this professional." The woman scoffs. "Professional? You're letting her stay here? Look at her. I don't feel safe." The words hit like turbulence. Naomi doesn't flinch. She's heard that tone before. Years ago, in another airport, when she was told her card didn't look legitimate. That day she walked away. Today, she doesn't plan to. The captain's door opens, and a tall man steps out. Captain Reynolds, sharp uniform, authority carved into every movement. "What's going on here?" he asks. The white passenger spins toward him, relief flooding her voice. "Thank God, finally someone in charge. I'm being forced to sit next to." She doesn't finish. She doesn't have to. The implication hangs heavy. Naomi closes her laptop softly, sets it aside, and says evenly, "I'm not sure why my presence is making anyone uncomfortable." Her tone is calm, surgical. Captain Reynolds hesitates. "Ma'am, perhaps we can reseat you?" Naomi tilts her head, not angry, just measuring. "Is that the solution? Reward the complaint." The cabin falls silent except for the low hum of the engines. The white woman crosses her arms. "I have rights." Naomi's gaze sharpens. "So do I." Across the aisle, a young flight attendant fidgets, torn between protocol and conscience. Naomi sees it, the hesitation, the fear of doing the right thing in uniform. She's seen that too many times. "It's okay," Naomi says softly, not to the passenger, but to the attendant. "Let people show who they are." The woman sneers, "Don't act like you're special." Naomi's voice remains level. "I don't have to act." Somewhere in the back, a passenger starts recording. The camera light blinks red, catching a scene that's about to change everything. The pilot sighs, muttering, "We'll sort this out on the ground." But Naomi doesn't move. Not yet. Because the ground they're talking about? She owns half of it. The cabin was too quiet now, the kind of quiet that carries judgment. The flight attendants exchanged uneasy glances, trapped between protocol and prejudice. The white passenger folded her arms and said, "You see? Even he agrees I should not have to sit here." Captain Reynolds looked conflicted, as if caught between order and convenience. "Ma'am, please," he began, but the woman interrupted. "Do something. You cannot expect me to sit beside her for 3 hours." The word "her" carried weight, an accusation disguised as discomfort. Dr. Naomi Ellis watched without moving, her fingers resting lightly on the armrest, the same armrest that now divided two versions of the world. "Captain," she said softly, "you might want to think carefully about how you handle this." Her tone was even, but something in it made him pause. A younger flight attendant, Emily, barely 24, stepped closer, her voice trembling but firm. "Captain, I checked her name earlier. Dr. Ellis is on the manifest, seat 3A. Everything is in order." The older woman snapped. "You checked wrong." Emily swallowed hard, but Naomi turned to her, offering a calm smile. "You did not check wrong. You did your job." For a moment, the noise of the engines seemed to vanish, leaving only the pulse of tension. The captain sighed, lowering his voice. "Dr. Ellis, would you be willing to move to another seat just to de-escalate?" Naomi looked at him directly. "Would you ask anyone else to do that if the complaint came from a different direction?" He did not answer. That silence spoke louder than any apology. Across the aisle, a businessman shifted uncomfortably. A mother held her child closer. Someone whispered, "This is messed up." Naomi took a slow breath, her calm wrapping around the moment like armor. "I will stay in my seat," she said. "The only thing escalating here is ignorance." The white passenger scoffed, her voice cracking under the weight of her own indignation. "You people always make it about race." Naomi blinked slowly. "It seems you already did." Her tone was not angry. It was surgical, a quiet dissection of bias. The captain's radio crackled. A male voice asked if there was a disturbance in first class. He looked at Naomi, at the woman still seething beside her, then back at Naomi again. "We are fine," he replied quickly, but the lie hung in the air like smoke. The engines hummed louder as the plane began taxiing, but no one spoke. Naomi turned toward the window, eyes tracing the reflection of the woman beside her. She remembered being 12, sitting on a bus in Atlanta, told by a stranger that her seat was already taken. She remembered moving then, just to keep peace. That day had carved something in her. A promise she kept ever since. Never again. The flight attendant Emily hovered nearby, whispering softly, "Dr. Ellis, I am so sorry." Naomi shook her head. "Do not apologize for others' blindness." The plane lifted off, engines roaring, yet the air in first class felt heavier than gravity itself. 10 minutes later, the complaining passenger pressed the call button again. "I want champagne," she demanded, "and a different blanket. Hers looks cleaner than mine." The words drew a few stunned looks, even laughter from row 5. Emily hesitated, then looked at Naomi, who simply nodded once. "Let her reveal herself," Naomi murmured under her breath. As Emily handed the woman her drink, the passenger turned her glare back toward Naomi. "You think you belong here?" Naomi met her eyes, voice low and steady. "I do not need to think it." The woman rolled her eyes. "Please, you people are always pretending." Naomi did not move, but her voice carried across the cabin like a verdict. "Pretending is what you are doing right now. Pretending money can buy class." The murmur that followed was almost a ripple of applause, though no one dared clap. Captain Reynolds stepped forward again, whispering harshly, "Dr. Ellis, please, this is getting out of hand." Naomi's gaze did not shift. "It was out of hand the moment you made me the problem instead of her." Emily's hands trembled, but she stood taller. "Captain, she is right." The captain glared at her, but Naomi's eyes never left his. "You might want to radio your supervisor," she said evenly, "because in about 5 minutes, this is going to reach your corporate office." He frowned. "Ma'am, there is no need for threats." Naomi smiled faintly. "That was not a threat. That was notice." The white passenger laughed loudly, mocking. "Oh please, what are you going to do? File a complaint." Naomi reached for her tablet bag and placed it gently on her lap. "Something like that," she said, unlocking the screen. The quiet click of the device sounded louder than the engines. Across the aisle, a passenger leaned forward, whispering to his seatmate. "Why does she sound like she actually could?" The seatmate answered softly, "Because she probably can." Naomi's reflection glimmered faintly in the window, her calm unbroken. She whispered to herself, "Silence is not surrender. It is strategy." And as the plane leveled into the clouds, she opened an email app that no one else on that flight had access to, one connected directly to the Sky Vista executive network. The screen's soft glow reflected in Naomi's eyes as her fingers moved with deliberate precision. She was not scrolling through entertainment options like the others. She was drafting a command. A discreet message appeared on her device. Sky Vista internal link, secure network. She typed quickly, "Activate protocol 9A. Record incident live. Tag flight 482, first class section." Within seconds, her assistant back at headquarters received the alert. Meanwhile, The complaining passenger continued her tirade, oblivious to the fact that her every word was being documented on a corporate compliance server. "Excuse me," the woman said loudly, motioning for another attendant. "This service is unacceptable. I have never been treated this way in my life." Naomi looked up, her voice calm. "You are being treated the same as everyone else. That is what upsets you." The woman's face twisted. "You are lucky I do not file a report myself." Naomi tilted her head slightly. "You are welcome to." She pressed send on her message. Back at Sky Vista's Miami headquarters, a notification chimed on a large screen in the Operations Integrity Department. Her assistant, Carla Reed, read the alert aloud to her team. Protocol 9A, live trigger. Source, Dr. Naomi Ellis. Everyone in the room froze. Carla whispered, "She is on a commercial flight." "Oh God." Within moments, the system began streaming data directly from Naomi's tablet. Audio, timestamps, staff IDs, and passenger seat information. "Record everything," Carla ordered. "Send the corporate liaison a notice. The CEO is live." Back on the plane, Naomi quietly folded her tablet cover and looked toward the window again. She did not raise her voice or demand attention. She simply existed with a certainty that made arrogance crumble. The captain's voice came over the intercom, forced and uneasy. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated as we reach cruising altitude. Our crew will resume service shortly." The tone was meant to calm, but it carried a nervous tremor. A man too rose back, whispered to his wife, "Something's off. You feel it?" She nodded, glancing at Naomi. "Yeah, like she knows something they don't." The white passenger snorted, still loud enough for half the cabin to hear. "Knows something? Please. People like her just act important." Naomi turned her gaze toward her and said quietly, "People like me build the companies you complain to." The sentence landed like a gavel. The woman blinked, flustered, words failing her for the first time. The flight attendant Emily looked between them, her eyes wide with disbelief and dawning realization. "Dr. Ellis," she whispered softly, "Sky Vista, as in this Sky Vista?" Naomi gave a subtle nod. "Yes, that one." Emily's jaw dropped slightly, but Naomi placed a finger to her lips. "Not yet." Across the cabin, Captain Reynolds received a buzz on his cockpit phone. "Captain Reynolds," a clipped voice said on the other end. "This is Carla Reed from Sky Vista Executive Compliance. I am informing you that your flight is currently under live review. Do you confirm an ongoing incident in first class?" His eyes widened. Yes, ma'am. But it is under control." "It will be," Carla replied coolly. "Just not by you." The line clicked off. He looked up, his knuckles tightening around the handset. "What the hell is happening?" he muttered under his breath. Meanwhile, Emily returned to the galley, heart pounding, whispering to another attendant. "She owns the airline," she said in disbelief. "Half of it." The other attendant, Marcus, frowned. "You're kidding." "I wish I were." Emily peeked around the corner. Naomi was seated still, calm, scrolling through her device, unbothered. Marcus whispered, "Do we tell the captain?" "He already knows," Emily replied. The realization settled over them like a storm cloud about to break. The passenger beside Naomi finally spoke again, her tone shaky now. "This is ridiculous. You are trying to make me look bad." Naomi's expression softened, but not with sympathy. "You did that on your own." The woman's cheeks flushed red. "You tricked me." Naomi shook her head slowly. "No, you revealed yourself." For a long moment, silence swallowed the cabin. Then a ding from the intercom cut through it. "This is your captain. We will be initiating a brief check-in from corporate compliance. Please remain seated." The other passengers looked around in confusion. "Compliance? What's that?" someone asked. Emily stepped into the aisle, microphone in hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began cautiously, "we have just received a communication from Sky Vista headquarters. Our CEO, Dr. Naomi Ellis, is on board today." Gasps rippled through the cabin like turbulence. The white woman's mouth fell open. "That's not possible," she stammered. You're lying." Naomi finally turned fully toward her, eyes steady, voice unwavering. "You said you could not sit next to me. Now you will sit through accountability." The engines hummed steady, but the air shifted, charged with something undeniable. Emily stepped back, heart racing. Captain Reynolds remained silent over the intercom. Naomi leaned back in her seat, eyes still calm. "Fasten your seatbelt." she said quietly to the woman beside her. It is going to be a long flight. And somewhere deep inside the corporate headquarters, Carla smiled faintly at her screen and whispered, "Protocol confirmed." For a full 30 seconds, no one moved. The announcement seemed to freeze the air mid-flight. The passengers who had been whispering suddenly went silent, every head turning toward the calm black woman in seat 3A. The white passenger beside her, now pale and trembling, clutched her glass as if it were a shield. "You cannot be serious," she muttered, her voice barely audible. Naomi did not even look at her. She simply leaned forward slightly, eyes steady on the aisle ahead. "Serious is the only language I speak," she said. Emily, the young flight attendant, was still holding the microphone. Her voice shook as she continued. "Corporate has requested direct communication with our captain and first-class crew. Please remain seated while we comply." The cabin buzzed with low murmurs. Phones came out, subtle but obvious. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" Another said, "That is her. I have seen her on the Forbes list." The complaining passenger's face drained of color. You set me up," she hissed under her breath. Naomi turned slowly, her gaze cool but unyielding. "No, you set yourself up when you decided respect was optional." The engines hummed softly beneath the tension. Captain Reynolds' voice came over the intercom, low and uneasy. "Dr. Ellis, on behalf of the crew, Naomi interrupted without raising her voice. "Save it, Captain. The apology can wait until after the investigation." She pressed a few keys on her tablet, and the cabin speakers emitted a faint tone. A crisp, professional female voice followed, echoing through every speaker. "This is Carla Reed, Executive Compliance Officer for SkyVista Airlines. This cabin is now under live audit. All communication and conduct on this flight are being recorded for official review." Gasps rippled through the rows. The white passenger gripped her seat arm, eyes darting between the attendants. "This is insane," she snapped. "You cannot do this on a plane." Carla's voice replied evenly. "Ma'am, the company reserves full right to protect its passengers and uphold its code of conduct. You are currently part of that record." The woman's jaw clenched, her indignation cracking under the sound of legal authority. Emily approached quietly, setting down a fresh glass of water beside Naomi. "Dr. Ellis," she whispered. "Do you want me to?" Naomi shook her head. "No, Emily. You already did the right thing. Just stand tall." Emily nodded, stepping back with quiet pride. Across the aisle, a man in a suit whispered to his wife, "This is history." She nodded slowly. "It is justice." The white woman beside Naomi slammed her call button again. "I want to speak to someone in charge." Naomi's eyes flicked to her, the faintest curve at the corner of her mouth. "You already are." Carla's voice returned through the speaker, firm but calm. "Captain Reynolds, please verify the names of all first-class staff members present at the time of the complaint." The captain hesitated. "Reynolds, Thomas. First Officer Michael Hales. Lead Attendant Marcus Denton. Flight Attendant Emily Carr." "Acknowledged," Carla replied. "Your statements will be requested immediately upon landing." "Dr. Ellis, do you confirm ongoing interference from passenger in seat 3B?" Naomi's reply was quiet but sharp. "Confirmed. But I believe the situation has corrected itself." The woman next to her turned away, tears welling, embarrassment replacing arrogance. "You do not understand," she muttered. Naomi's voice softened just slightly. "I understand more than you think." The plane shuddered gently as it passed through a layer of turbulence. Naomi's reflection flickered in the window, composed, strong, unbroken. She had lived this pattern before. Every decade, the setting changed, but the story stayed the same. Disbelief that power could wear her face. Across the cabin, a teenage boy watching the scene whispered to his mother, "Mom, she is the boss of the whole airline?" The mother nodded. "Yes, honey, and she handled it better than most people ever could." Carla's voice returned, formal and concluding. "This audit will continue until touchdown. All flight staff are advised to comply fully. Thank you, passengers, for your cooperation." Naomi closed her tablet and exhaled quietly, her tone calm but final. "That will do for now." Emily approached once more, whispering, "Are you sure you are okay?" Naomi nodded. "I am fine. But she tilted her head toward the trembling woman beside her. "Just learn the cost of her own assumptions." The woman whispered, "Please." "I did not mean." Naomi turned toward her. "Meaning it does not erase doing it." The words hung in the air, a quiet verdict. The engines roared softly beneath them, carrying 200 witnesses who would never forget what dignity sounded like when it finally spoke for itself. The clouds outside had turned golden with the afternoon sun, but inside the cabin, the air was still heavy, charged with silent reckoning. No one was reading anymore. No one dared to scroll on their phones. They just sat there, aware that something far greater than a flight delay was unfolding in real time. The white passenger beside Naomi fidgeted with her scarf. Her once perfect posture collapsed into quiet panic. Her voice came out shaky, almost childlike. "You do not have to destroy me over this." Naomi turned her head slightly. "Not cruel, not merciful, just honest. You destroyed yourself the moment you decided someone else's presence was an offense." The woman opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She pressed her lips together, as if sealing in regret that had arrived too late. Across the aisle, the businessman who had whispered earlier finally spoke louder. "Ma'am," he said to Naomi, "for what it is worth, thank you. My daughter is mixed. She is 13. I hope one day she can be that calm under pressure." Naomi gave him a small nod, her eyes kind for the first time that day. "Teach her she does not need to shrink to make others comfortable." The man smiled faintly and nodded. Captain Reynolds came down the aisle again, his face pale, his composure crumbling under the weight of the situation. "Dr. Ellis," he began softly, "corporate has instructed me to relay that all statements will be taken immediately upon landing. Is there anything else you would like to add?" Naomi met his gaze, steady and sharp. "Yes. Integrity is not situational, Captain. Remember that when you put your uniform back on." He swallowed hard and nodded, retreating quietly. The murmurs started again, softer this time, but layered with awe instead of curiosity. Emily stood at the front of the cabin, watching the exchange unfold with pride and disbelief. She had never seen anyone take control without raising their voice, without anger, just certainty. She knew she would never forget this flight. 20 minutes passed in uneasy calm. The white passenger sat rigid, glancing out the window, clearly replaying every word she had said. Finally, she whispered, "You must think I am a terrible person." Naomi's reply was almost gentle. "I think you are a mirror. Some people will see what they hate in themselves when they look at you." The woman's eyes watered, and she nodded weakly. "I am sorry." Naomi's voice softened. "Do not apologize to me. Do better when no one is watching." From the intercom, Carla's composed voice returned. "Captain Reynolds, please confirm that passenger in seat 3B has been briefed regarding the company's formal conduct investigation." The captain's strained voice replied, "Confirmed." Carla continued, "Upon landing, both passengers will be escorted to the corporate lounge for formal review. Dr. Ellis, do you confirm your participation?" Naomi answered calmly, "Confirmed." The announcement silenced the last traces of chatter. The rest of the cabin seemed to breathe again, slowly and carefully, as if afraid to disturb the balance of what had just occurred. Emily quietly knelt beside Naomi's seat, whispering, "Dr. Ellis, when this is over, I just want to say thank you for showing us what grace looks like." Naomi smiled faintly. "Grace is not weakness, Emily. It is precision." Emily nodded, blinking back tears. At the front of the cabin, Marcus, the lead attendant, whispered to another crew member, "I have never seen anything like that." She did not yell, did not threaten, just dismantled the entire problem with composure. The other attendant replied softly, "That is real power." Naomi leaned her head back against the seat, her eyes half closed. For a moment, she was not thinking about the humiliation or the headlines that might follow. She was thinking about her mother. About being 9 years old in a grocery store when a clerk refused her mother's check because it did not look trustworthy. About watching her mother walk out with quiet dignity instead of rage. That was the day Naomi learned that silence could be louder than shouting. And now, 32,000 feet above the ground, that lesson had come full circle. The captain's voice returned to the intercom, steady but subdued. "Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin our descent into Los Angeles in approximately 20 minutes. Please remain seated as we prepare for landing." Naomi glanced outside the window. The sunlight had softened, washing over the wings like a quiet benediction. The woman beside her looked down, whispering again, I am truly sorry. Naomi looked at her, and this time there was no anger, no triumph, only truth. Then let that sorry mean something when you step off this plane. The engines hummed lower as the city came into view beneath the clouds, but inside the cabin, the weight of what had been said would not fade. Justice had not shouted. It had spoken in calm, deliberate tones. And everyone on board knew they had just witnessed more than an argument. They had witnessed accountability at 30,000 feet. The wheels touched down with a soft thud, and a ripple of tension spread through the cabin. The landing lights flickered against Naomi's face as she sat perfectly still, her hands folded neatly in her lap. No applause came from the passengers, only the sound of slow, cautious breathing. Everyone knew they were not just arriving in Los Angeles. They were arriving at a reckoning. The intercom clicked, and Captain Reynolds spoke in a tight, professional tone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Los Angeles. Please remain seated as our corporate representatives board for a brief security and compliance review. He exhaled heavily, then added, Dr. Ellis, thank you for your cooperation. Naomi did not reply. She simply looked out the window, watching the terminal lights slide past like silent spectators. The white passenger beside her clutched her purse tightly, her knuckles pale. What is going to happen now? She whispered. Naomi turned her head, eyes calm but firm. What always happens when the truth finally lands. Two gate agents in dark suits stepped through the door, followed by Carla Reed herself, her badge gleaming against her blazer. She moved with quiet authority, clipboard in hand, her tone clipped but controlled. Captain Reynolds, you and your crew will remain on board until debrief. Passengers in seats 3A and 3B, please stay seated. We will begin with you. The murmurs began again. Phones tilted discreetly toward the aisle. Everyone wanted to see how this would end. Carla walked straight to Naomi and offered a respectful nod. Dr. Ellis. Carla. Naomi replied softly. I appreciate your speed. Carla gave a faint smile. You know I do not take these things lightly. She turned toward the trembling passenger in 3B, whose confidence had completely unraveled. Ma'am, Carla said, voice professional but icy. I am here on behalf of Sky Vista's corporate office to document your conduct during this flight. You will be escorted to a private room for questioning regarding violation of our passenger code of conduct, specifically harassment and discriminatory behavior. The woman's mouth opened, then closed again. I did not mean, intent does not erase impact, Carla interrupted smoothly. You made repeated demands to have another passenger relocated based solely on their appearance. That is a violation of federal anti-discrimination law and company policy. Naomi watched silently as the woman's face drained of color. Emily stood nearby, her hands clasped nervously. Carla turned to her next. You are Emily Carr, correct? The flight attendant who verified Dr. Ellis's ticket. Emily nodded quickly. Yes, ma'am. Carla gave her a measured look, then said, You did the right thing. Your professionalism will be noted in the report. Emily blinked in surprise, relief washing over her face. Thank you. Carla then turned back toward Naomi. Dr. Ellis, the board has already been notified. They are requesting a formal statement from you once you are in the executive lounge. Naomi nodded once. Understood. She unbuckled her seatbelt and stood, her calm presence filling the space like gravity itself. The passengers all watched as she reached for her briefcase and tablet. Even those who had avoided eye contact earlier now looked at her with something between respect and awe. Carla gestured toward the door. We have a private escort ready, ma'am. Naomi paused, glancing back at the rows of faces. No, we will take the front exit. Let them see what accountability looks like. Carla hesitated, but then nodded. Together, they began walking down the aisle. The cabin fell completely silent. The sound of Naomi's heels against the floor echoed like a metronome of justice. As they reached the front, the white passenger in 3B whispered hoarsely, I am sorry. Naomi stopped, turned her head just enough to meet her eyes, and said quietly, So am I. Sorry that it took this for you to understand. Then she stepped forward, exiting the aircraft into the jet bridge where several corporate officers and airport security personnel waited. Carla handed Naomi a tablet displaying the preliminary report. All evidence has been logged, she said. Audio, video, crew statements. Everything is airtight. Naomi skimmed the document, then handed it back. Suspend the captain and lead attendant until further notice. Emily Carr is to be placed on immediate promotion review. And for the passenger in 3B, issue a lifetime travel ban across all Sky Vista and partner carriers. Carla nodded firmly. Understood. They walked toward the glass doors of the terminal, flashes from phone cameras lighting their path. But Naomi did not flinch. She simply adjusted her blazer, her voice calm and deliberate. File the final report under case designation 30,000 feet, she said. Because sometimes justice has to fly before it can land. Behind her, Emily stood at the cabin door, watching her boss disappear down the jet bridge with quiet admiration. The other passengers remained seated, stunned, realizing they had just witnessed a moment that would be talked about for years, a moment when dignity refused to descend. The corporate lounge at Los Angeles International Airport was unusually quiet when Naomi stepped inside. Glass walls framed the skyline, and the city shimmered in the late afternoon haze. Carla walked a few paces behind her, phone in hand, giving quick instructions to the compliance team waiting near the counter. The atmosphere felt like a courtroom suspended in air. A cluster of executives from Sky Vista's Los Angeles division stood as Naomi entered, their expressions caught between reverence and dread. Dr. Ellis. One of them began nervously. We were just briefed. We had no idea. Naomi raised a hand, cutting him off gently. You did not need to have an idea. You needed to have standards. The man's voice faltered. Of course, ma'am. She set her briefcase on the conference table, opened it, and slid her tablet toward Carla. Pull the full incident log. I want a timeline review, crew interaction, passenger complaint, and command response. Carla nodded, tapping quickly. Already in progress. We have the full recording synced from your onboard activation. Naomi's gaze softened slightly. Good. And Carla, thank you for acting fast. Carla smiled faintly. That is what you taught us. Naomi turned her attention back to the group of executives, now shifting uncomfortably by the window. Let us talk about culture, she said, her tone calm but unyielding. Because the problem did not start at 30,000 feet. It started the day people in this company believed professionalism meant silence in the face of bias. The room went still. A woman in a gray suit, head of regional operations, cleared her throat. Dr. Ellis, the behavior of that passenger was unacceptable, but the crew reflected the culture we allowed, Naomi interrupted. When discrimination becomes routine, accountability feels like punishment. She leaned forward slightly, every word measured. That is over. From this day forward, every Sky Vista employee, from captain to cabin cleaner, will complete a new equity and ethics certification before they fly another mile. Carla nodded approvingly. We can roll that out company-wide within 60 days. Naomi glanced at her. Make it 30. The executives exchanged looks, surprised. 30 days? One whispered. Naomi smiled faintly. If we can get 200 passengers from New York to Los Angeles in 5 hours, we can teach decency in 1 month. The quiet power. In her words, silenced the room. Carla's phone buzzed. She glanced down, then looked up at Naomi. The passenger from seat 3B has arrived for her interview. Naomi took a slow breath, standing. Bring her in. The door opened a moment later. The woman stepped in cautiously, no longer defiant. Her makeup smudged, her hands trembling as she clutched her bag. Carla gestured to a chair. Please, have a seat. The woman obeyed without a word. Naomi regarded her calmly. Do you understand why you are here? The woman nodded, eyes downcast. Yes. To apologize, I suppose. Naomi's tone stayed even. Apology is a start, but understanding is the goal. The woman swallowed hard. I was scared, she said softly. I have seen things on the news, and I reacted without thinking. Naomi's voice was steady but sharp. You thought plenty. You thought your comfort mattered more than someone's dignity. You thought civility was yours to control. That is not fear, that is conditioning. Tears welled in the woman's eyes. I do not know how to fix this. Naomi leaned forward, her gaze unwavering. You fix it by seeing it. By not pretending this was an accident. You fix it by teaching your children that respect is not selective. The woman nodded, wiping her face. I am sorry, she whispered again. Naomi stood, her presence quiet yet absolute. I accept your apology, but not for me. For the people who will never have the chance to demand one. The woman exhaled shakily, realizing the weight of what had just been said. Carla stepped in, gently touching Naomi's arm. "We will take it from here," she said softly. Naomi nodded and turned toward the window. The skyline outside was beginning to glow with sunset light, orange and gold streaking across the glass. Carla's voice in the background was firm, procedural, professional. "This interview is being recorded for legal and ethical documentation. Passenger 3B, you will receive notice of disciplinary action and a permanent ban from Sky Vista operations." Naomi watched the planes take off and land beyond the glass. To anyone else, they were just flights, but to her, they were symbols, proof that progress, like flight, depended on lift and balance. She whispered quietly, mostly to herself, "Justice does not humiliate. It teaches." Carla overheard her and smiled. Then today was a lesson. Naomi turned, her expression softening into something resolute. "No, Carla, today was a warning. The lesson comes next." The room fell silent again, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence that comes when truth finally fills the air. The next morning, the Sky Vista headquarters in Miami was already buzzing before sunrise. News of the Madeira confrontation had spread overnight. Clips filmed by passengers were trending across every major platform. CEO confronts racism at 30,000 feet, the calmest power move ever recorded, and she owns half the airline. Naomi had not spoken publicly yet, but her silence was more powerful than any press release. Inside the top-floor conference room, sunlight poured through glass walls, painting the room in gold. Carla stood at one end of the long table, briefing the executive board. "The footage has been authenticated. Our legal and public relations departments are advising a controlled statement from Dr. Ellis within the hour. Internal morale is high. External trust is climbing, but we need to handle this precisely." Naomi entered quietly, her presence immediately commanding attention. Every conversation stopped mid-sentence. She set her coffee down, calm as ever, and said, "Let us begin." One of the senior board members, Richard Halden, cleared his throat. "Dr. Ellis, this incident has put Sky Vista at the center of the global conversation on bias. We have two options: issue a corporate apology and focus on policy updates, or make you the face of the response. The second option carries risk." Naomi looked at him steadily. "Risk is pretending neutrality in the face of injustice." She took a seat and folded her hands. "We are not running from this. We are leading through it." Carla nodded. Media outlets are already calling this a turning point in the industry. Naomi glanced at the screen displaying news headlines. "Then let us make sure it becomes one." She looked around the room. "Effective immediately, every Sky Vista employee will undergo a new culture and ethics reform program. Not a workshop, a transformation." Richard frowned slightly. "That will cost millions." Naomi's gaze didn't waver. So did silence. The room went quiet. Carla projected the audit results onto the wall, graphs, complaint records, and a pattern that was impossible to ignore. "This is not isolated," she said. "Incidents like this have happened in small ways across our branches. The difference is that this one was caught on camera." Naomi studied the data, her voice low but deliberate. "Then, the camera did not expose us. It freed us." Carla smiled faintly. "That line will be quoted." Naomi ignored the compliment and turned back to the board. "By week's end, I want a public announcement outlining our reform plan. We will create a diversity accountability council led by independent advisors outside the company. They will have authority to audit us whenever they choose." Richard leaned forward, astonished. "You are inviting external oversight?" "Yes," Naomi replied. "Because power without accountability is just privilege in a tailored suit." Carla met her eyes, nodding. "Understood. I will start drafting the structure." Naomi continued, her voice unwavering. "We will also reinstate employees who were wrongfully terminated after reporting bias, review all pending cases, and create a confidential hotline directly under my supervision." Around the table, the executives exchanged quiet, uneasy glances. This was not a policy adjustment. It was a revolution. Naomi stood, walking toward the window overlooking the city. "We fly millions of passengers every year. That means millions of stories, millions of chances to get it right. Yesterday, we failed publicly. Today, we rise publicly." Carla glanced down at her phone. "The press conference is ready when you are." Naomi turned, her silhouette framed by sunlight. "Then let us make it clear. This company does not just fly through storms. It becomes stronger because of them. A few minutes later, she stepped onto the stage in the media room downstairs. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned forward, the sound of shutters filling the air. Naomi stood behind the podium. No notes, no teleprompter, just her voice. Yesterday's incident was not about one woman, one flight, or one mistake. It was about a culture that has been allowed to confuse comfort with superiority. That culture ends now. We will rebuild Sky Vista not by hiding our flaws, but by exposing them and fixing them. Her words cut through the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. For too long, corporations have issued apologies without accountability. That changes today. We will not just say the right words. We will become them. The reporters scribbled frantically as Naomi continued. Respect is not optional. Equality is not seasonal. Dignity does not depend on the seat you buy or the color of the person next to you. The room fell silent except for the sound of typing. Naomi paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. This company is mine, but its future belongs to everyone who chooses to do better. Let this flight be remembered not for conflict, but for correction. The flash of cameras returned, but Naomi did not flinch. Her voice stayed calm, deliberate, certain. We can build planes that defy gravity. It is time we build a world that defies prejudice. The applause that followed was not polite. It was thunderous, rising from a place deeper than admiration. It was hope finally taking flight. Months later, the world still remembered that flight. The story of Dr. Naomi Ellis had become more than a headline. It had become a case study in how quiet power can shake an entire industry. Sky Vista Airlines underwent the most comprehensive reform in its history. Every training manual was rewritten, every policy reviewed, every employee retrained under the new ethics certification Naomi had created. The company's new slogan appeared across airports worldwide. Dignity takes flight. Travelers began noticing the difference immediately. More inclusive service, more awareness, more accountability. The reform spread beyond aviation. Corporations across industries began citing Sky Vista as a model for change. Naomi never sought the spotlight, but her silence could no longer protect her anonymity. She was invited to conferences, interviewed by national media, and quoted by leaders who once underestimated her. Yet she remained the same woman who preferred quiet airports and simple coffee. One evening, she sat in her corner office at headquarters overlooking the Miami skyline. The sun was setting, painting the glass towers gold. Carla entered, holding a folder. "It is official," she said with a smile. "The equity reform program has reached 100% completion across all divisions." Naomi looked up, her expression calm but warm. "That is a milestone, Carla." Carla nodded. "The world has not stopped talking about that flight. They call it the moment the skies changed." Naomi smiled faintly. "Good. Let them remember." She stood and walked to the window. The reflection of the city lights shimmered against the glass, and for a moment, she saw herself not as an executive, but as that young girl sitting on the bus in Atlanta, told that her seat was not hers to keep. She thought of her mother's quiet strength, the lessons she carried for decades, and how those moments had led her here. Carla spoke softly from behind her. "Do you ever regret how public it became?" Naomi turned, her gaze steady. "No. Some truths have to be loud so others can live quietly." Carla smiled. "You know, Emily Carr just got her promotion. She will be managing the Seattle hub." Naomi's eyes softened. "That is good news. She earned it." Carla hesitated. "And the passenger from seat 3B?" She sent another letter. "It is not public, but she wanted to thank you for what she called a lesson that redefined her life." Naomi exhaled slowly, her voice quiet. Then the lesson worked. The office fell into a comfortable silence. The hum of the city below felt like the steady heartbeat of progress. On the opposite wall hung a framed photo, a candid image taken the day after the press conference, showing Naomi and Carla standing side by side beneath the company's new banner. Underneath it, engraved in brass, were Naomi's words: "Leadership is not about who speaks the loudest. It is about who listens when the world goes silent." Outside, a Sky Vista jet ascended into the sky, its tail catching the last light of dusk. Naomi watched it disappear into the clouds, then turned back to Carla. "Schedule the board for next week. I want the new Diversity Accountability Council in place before the fiscal quarter ends." Carla nodded. "Already done." Naomi smiled faintly. You always are. Carla began to leave, but paused at the door. Naomi, one last thing. The media wants a quote for our anniversary campaign. They asked what Sky Vista stands for now. Naomi considered for a moment, then said simply, we stand for everyone who was ever told they did not belong, and we fly higher because of them. Carla's eyes glistened. That will make headlines. Naomi shook her head. Then let it. Some stories deserve to. As the door closed behind Carla, Naomi sat back down at her desk. Her phone buzzed. An email from Emily, the subject line reading, First day as manager. Thank you for believing in me. Naomi smiled, replying with just one line. Keep the skies honest. She set the phone down and leaned back, letting the quiet of the evening settle around her. Outside, the city hummed, planes ascended, and somewhere a little girl looked up, watching them vanish into the clouds, believing for the first time that there was no seat she did not deserve to occupy. Naomi whispered softly, her words fading into the hum of the night. Justice does not need thunder. Sometimes it only needs altitude. And with that, she turned off the lights, leaving the skyline glowing, a reminder that change, once airborne, never lands the same way again.